Comic book movies can be a genre that can feel absolutely massive, yet very shallow. It's easily the biggest movie genre right now, having what feels like hundreds of movies and shows based on comic books coming out each year, all ranging severely in quality. Recently though, people have become way more critical of superhero films and wondering if it is superhero fatigue, and I think James Gunn said it best. I think there is superhero fatigue. I think it doesn't have anything to do with superheroes. It has to do with the kind of stories that get to be told, and if you lose your eye on the ball, which is character. And that made me want to talk about and analyze the 3 movies that I think do this perfectly, and really have excellent characters that are at the heart of the stories. That's why I want to break down these 3 films, and why I consider them to be perfect, character-driven superhero films. I think the best place to start off is with an origin story.
Alright, let's do this one last time.
Into the Spiderverse is the first film we're going to dive into because this is the perfect superhero origin story. It also has groundbreaking animation, one of the best scores in an animated film, an incredible voice cast, and some of the greatest moments in a comic book film. But the thing about Spiderverse that made it so perfect is its story on Spider-Man. Okay, I should have been more specific there. I'm talking about the ultimate Spider-Man, Miles Morales. The story starts off with us following Miles as he begins attending and living at a new school and feeling the pressure of growing up. We see all of the stresses in his life, his tense relationship with his dad, his social problems at school and all the homework that's piling up, and most of all, just not being comfortable being away from home. This leads him to go to the one place he feels comfortable at, his Uncle Aaron's house, where they end up just hanging out and throwing up art on the street later, which eventually leads to Miles getting bit by the spider, yada yada yada, and eventually stumbling into Kingpin's base. Miles ends up in the crossfire between Spider-Man, Green Goblin, and Kingpin, and Spider-Man has to eventually save Miles and ends up dying doing it, giving him though the goober that will take down Kingpin's operation and the responsibility to stop Kingpin. We instantly begin to pick up on the thematic idea of fear and anxiety, and the consequences that come when Miles avoided those looming threats. Because Miles wasn't able to accept what was happening in his life and running away from it, he ended up inadvertently killing Spider-Man. Here though, we see a change in Miles. We see him start moving towards his problems and using his responsibility to actually stop the Super Collider. When he starts running towards his problems, he meets his mentor, Peter B. Parker, and Spider-Woman, and all the other Spider people, and he begins to understand who he is and begins to start to improve with his powers. But the writers of the movie, Rodney Rothman and Phil Lord, didn't want to make him seem perfect. So when he's questioned for the first time in the Spider Lair about how good he is with his powers and if he can actually stand up and be Spider-Man, he feels defeated and just leaves them, going back to his Uncle Aaron, regressing to who he was before. But when he runs away and goes back to his Uncle Aaron's, he realizes that the only person he trusts is the Prowler, a villain working for Kingpin who's been hunting him this whole time. His running from the Spider People back to his uncle, back to the Spider People, ends up leading Prowler and the rest of the gang to go to Aunt May's house, where Prowler is eventually shot and killed trying to save Miles. Miles has now lost the only person who truly took all away his fears and his anxieties. They're all back. Only then for Miles to end up in his room as Peter ties him up, telling him he's not ready to be Spider-Man. Everything Miles has run from is now caught up to him. He's in the room he didn't want to be in, at the school he tried to run from, confronted at the door by his dad that he tried to ignore. All of it though is accentuated by his dad when he tells Miles that he has a spark to him and he's going to be able to choose what he wants to do with it. And for the first time in Miles' life, we see him truly start running towards his problems as he breaks out of the chair and finally makes his own choice to be Spider-Man.
I thought I was the only one. You're like me.
I don't want to be.
I don't think you have a choice, kiddo.
I see this spark in you. It's amazing. Whatever you choose to do with it, you'll be great.
When do I know I'm Spider-Man?
You won't.
That's all it is, Miles. A leap of faith.
Now, I don't need to tell you that the What's Up Danger sequence is perfect, we all know that, but the way everything is built up to this scene makes it as excellent as it is. The entire time of him running away and here finally accepting who he is and what he wants to do makes his origin that much more powerful and more incredible. Everything, every choice, every scene has led to this moment of him becoming Spider-Man, and no other film has built up a character turning into a superhero that perfectly. Then everything he has learned is showed off perfectly in the incredible finale, not only with him having a completely different suit, showing that the only way for him to truly be Spider-Man was to embrace himself and his powers, but all of it is made even more thematically stronger with his opposite villain, Kingpin. When I first saw the movie, the one thing I was on the fence about was Kingpin. At face value, it wasn't that interesting of a villain, but when viewed as a thematic opposite to Miles, he becomes excellent. Kingpin is desperately holding on to the past, trying to bring his dead wife and son back, while Miles has accepted responsibility and taken a leap of faith in the future. It's a perfect duality between villain and hero, and it's just so the entire third act, with Miles using everything he's learned from all the Spider-Man, his Uncle Aaron, and using all he's learned to fight and beat all of his problems that we had set up before, makes the final third act of this movie so rewarding. His life wasn't easy, and a lot of the problems he faced were very real, yet he was able to overcome all of them. It's incredibly powerful for anyone watching in any walk of life, and especially for kids who will watch it growing up. Anyone can be a hero, anyone can wear the mask. It's so perfect of an origin that you don't even notice Miles' slow transformation into being Spider-Man. Everything in the movie is adding to his complexity and the theme of approaching your fears of the unknown. He could have never gone to Vision's Academy. He didn't have to go and try and get a new Spider-Man's help. He didn't have to fulfill the promise he gave to the original Peter. And he didn't have to get out of that chair. But he did, and that's why he's a hero. Into the Spider-Verse is just so perfect, and the story is just such a small aspect of why it's incredible. It's a movie that shakes the animation landscape to its core. It's one of the best movies of the last 5 years, and probably will be the best Spider-Man movie ever made, with the story of Miles and how he became Spider-Man. Never mind, I guess it's now tied for number 1, since now I can't choose between these two, but Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is the definition of a perfect origin story for a superhero in a comic book film, and it should be studied in film schools because it's just that good. Spider-Verse truly is a modern masterpiece. The next film I want to talk about isn't an origin story, but a movie that happens in the prime of a hero's crime-fighting career, and that is The Dark Knight. Now, if you know this channel a bit, you know I already made a review on this movie, but that was when my videos were kind of awful, and I try to forget about them. But I always want to give myself an excuse to talk about this movie because it's one of the greatest movies ever made, period. It has some of the greatest direction, one of the most perfectly written screenplays, and a villain performance that genuinely might be the greatest in cinematic history. It's just that good. But there's one thing that I absolutely love about this movie that is overshadowed constantly, and to be fair, it's for good reason because the Joker is so good, but it's the story of Batman and the story they give him. Bruce here, after Batman Begins, seems to be at the top of his game, living his full life. He has his Bruce Wayne life down. He's stopping a crime at the beginning of the movie like it's no biggie. He has a brand new suit and he's just crushing it. And then we see the Joker hit Gotham, and it's not like anything he has seen before. I love how the movie nearly comes to a complete standstill for Batman. He starts witnessing the crimes that Joker is doing, completely unable to understand what he is doing. Batman can barely understand why Joker is destroying everything in Gotham until it's the realization that Joker just doesn't have a reason. Which to Batman, who's mainly fought Ra's al Ghul, who only fought with reason, that is the most horrifying idea that could ever come up. All of his methods are meant to stop someone who has consistency in a pattern, so his detective work, his combat, his fighting, all of it to take down Joker is never gonna work. Joker is always one step ahead of him at just burning Gotham to the ground piece by piece. Batman is never able to stop what Joker is doing since there's no way to predict it, and the most horrifying moment is when all of it leads to the climactic moment and the death of Rachel. A moment before that, Batman was interrogating the Joker. He felt he had full control, literally only for the Joker to tell him,
You have nothing to threaten me with. Nothing to do with all your strength.
It's this horrifying realization that Joker has a way to destroy everything that matters to Bruce. On one hand is the man who's supposed to save Gotham and really the white knight of the city, Harvey Dent, and the other is Rachel, the woman he loves and the only hope of him having a normal life. That moment of deciding who to save is the moment that not only Rachel dies, but Bruce does as well. One of the greatest ideas in Batman comics is the idea that Batman is the real version of Bruce, and that idea is executed perfectly in The Dark Knight. The scene after Rachel dies shows that the hope of Bruce having a normal life died with her. All that remains for him is that symbol of hope that he can bring for Gotham and the people in it. All he has left is Batman. So when he goes to confront Joker with the two boats on the line, we know that all that remains between Joker and Gotham is that beacon of hope that will not be crushed. No matter what Joker does to Batman, he will always prevail and never allow him to break him, since he knows that Gotham needs a protector. When he does save the hostages though, and when the boats don't go off, and when he does beat Joker though, he still has the horrifying realization again that he still lost. Joker's corruption of the system led to the White Knight of the city, Harvey Dent, turning into the crazed killer Two-Face. All that Bruce has fought for through the entire movie when it comes to that beacon of hope is about to vanish. When he confronts Harvey, he is this crazed lunatic who will murder Commissioner Gordon's child, and it's one of the most intense and crazy scenes to ever happen, leading to Batman getting shot and in a split move saving the child and jumping into Harvey as they tumble off the building and crash on the ground, killing Two-Face. But it's the scene afterwards that really has the most impact in the entire movie. You have Batman and Gordon looking at Harvey and wondering what do they even do, and it's at that moment when Bruce reaches down into who he truly is, and all he has is his morality and values that the Joker was never able to break. So Bruce gives up the one thing that he has left, and that's the idea of Batman. They blame all of the crimes and murders on Batman. Bruce takes all the blame for Harvey's action in a desperate attempt to protect the people of Gotham and to give them hope. When no one is looking, the Dark Knight is still looking over the citizens of Gotham. This is getting so sappy over a movie where a guy is dressed as a bat and fights an evil clown. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I've been recording for like 3 hours. But The Dark Knight, for all that it does right, is never praised enough for its excellent portrayal of Batman as a character and the hero that prevails even at his lowest point. So with having what I think the perfect comic book origin story and the perfect comic book movie about a character in the prime of their crime fighting career, I think it's only right to end the video with talking about the ending story to a hero. So of course that movie's gonna be Logan. Now the story of Logan in the X-Men films has been a rocky journey, with all the movies being way all over the place when it comes to quality, and the way the movie almost self-referentially makes Logan just so tired of his adventures makes the movie even stronger. The legend of the Wolverine being bigger than he is and constantly shadowing him as he tries to leave that world behind him, only for it to call back to him one last time when a woman named Gabriella tries to get him to take his lost clone daughter Laura over the border into Canada where these mutants can live out the rest of their lives peacefully. It's an idea that is so pure in a world that is so awful and cruel. Unlike Spiderverse or the Dark Knight, Logan has a world that is completely horrible with little to no hope in it. Children are tested on, mutants are hunted and killed now, and the world is a shell of what it used to be. It's that juxtaposition between the violence of the world and the purity of the journey that Logan goes on that makes the film so special, and the journey for Logan as incredible as it is. We see these incredibly violent and brutal scenes that Logan and Laura have to fight their way out of, only to see Logan desperately try later to care for an aging Charles Xavier. It's these type of moments where you're on the fence of whether they'll even make it out at all that makes the film so special, and all of that is best shown in the farmhouse scene. Around the middle of the film, Logan pulls over to help a small family when their horses escape from their car. It's a moment of him being selfless and doing a small deed of service, and it leads to Logan and the gang being invited back to the house for dinner. And we see for a moment the beauty of the simple life, what Logan has been looking for his entire life. We've seen it with his pursuit to be with Jean and his hope to be at peace in Japan. This is something that Logan has always wanted desperately. It seems so perfect, only for the villains Dr. Rice and Pierce to arrive and release X-24 upon the family. We see this younger, faster, and stronger version of Logan enter the house and brutally murder everyone inside of it. We see Charles, who so desperately wanted to be comforted in his life, murdered by the creation he really tried to save. And this turning point is so dark and harrowing, but an absolutely pivotal moment for Logan as he sees X-24 coming down the stairs. The rage and pure hatred that he was bred to have in himself stirring right back at him. It's this moment where Logan realizes that he'll never have peace in his life. His rage will always come back, and his violence will always find some way to get back to him. But he could save the people in his life. He could save Laura. It's when Logan realizes that he inadvertently killed his own father figure that he becomes such a devastatingly beautiful character. He will never be able to have peace in his life, and he's able to accept that and realizes that what he can do though is try to save his daughter and all the mutants. When he gets Laura to North Dakota and all the mutant children are making their desperate attempt to cross the border, they realize they aren't going to make it until they hear the harrowed roar from the trees. Dr. Rice and his men realize for a moment that it's not the old beat-down Logan who they've been fighting that's coming for them. It's Wolverine. It's the legend who saved and fought for people selflessly, the X-Man who did more for others than he could ever do for himself, the hero deep down that he constantly tried to bury, re-emerging one last time. It's Wolverine's last stand that is so beautiful because it's the ultimate sign of a hero, a person who puts others' lives in front of their own. As he fights himself and all the soldiers as the children escape, we see him get more and more injured and we realize he isn't going to make it. And he knows that too. He accepts that above all, he is a hero and ends up sacrificing his life in order for the kids to escape. We then see at the end of the movie Logan's funeral and the kids walk away only for Laura to stay behind and turn his cross over to an X. Not only is this symbolism for him as Wolverine and as an X-Men, but to show his legacy. He's the hero she read about in the comic book pages. He was the hero that Gabriella thought he was. He was the hero that was there for the mutants, and at the end of the day, he ended up being the true mutant hero that Charles always saw him as. And I think that ending is the perfect ending for the entire Fox X-Men franchise and the story of Logan overall. It's just such a perfect personal ending for a hero that was larger than life and played perfectly by Hugh Jackman. And those three films I think show how different and incredible comic book movies can be when they keep their eye on character. All these movies are completely rated differently and all in different genres. Into the Spiderverse is rated PG and is for kids, and then you have a very adult rated R version of Logan. All of them are tackling completely different age ranges, with Miles being 13 and Logan being freaking 200, but all of them at their core are about these characters, and they succeed because they are all about telling these characters' stories. When you focus on character, everything else falls into place. Sure, all three of these movies are also expertly directed and edited, and they all have unique visions in cinematography and color palettes, but that's because they were all focused on their characters mainly, and then completely created something completely unique around them. None of these movies are at all similar when it comes to their story structure or tone. One of them is a multiverse story with 5 main protagonists surrounding our main character. Another one is a singular story of a vigilante trying to stop one man who stands directly against everything he stands for, who's also dressed up as a clown. And the other is a road trip western movie in the apocalypse about a family trying to cross a border. All of them are completely different, but at their core, They are all about the hero at the center of the movie. And that's what comic book movies are at their best, when they're telling these incredible stories about humanity and when people truly are heroes if they have powers or even if they don't.